Hello. Apologies for that. You should be able to unmute now.
How about now?
You're all good.
Wow, you're gonna pay for that.
I know.
You don't want to hear me blather on tonight. I've got an idea. How about I not?
I mean, it's your call.
I guess at the end of the day, that's entirely true.
Or Josh if he just wants to cut you off, but
Yeah, well, yeah. And by the way, who could blame him, right?
yeah.
So, but hey, you saw the responses I was getting
Yes.
for Thursday. So I think what I'm gonna do, why don't we try and just like, why don't we try and pick where are we? Why don't we try and find a September Thursday and an October, put them on the
Okay.
books, and then we'll deal with them later. In
Sounds
terms
good.
of, if we have to cancel one.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that works. You know, you probably have access to calendars and such better than I.
I have calendars of when every board and commission in the city meets, as well as I know traffic council's dates for the rest of the year.
Perfect. So maybe you're in a better place to do that more efficiently.
Yeah, I can get that done tomorrow morning.
Okay, yeah. Anytime in the next week or so, I think it's fine. Cool. And
No
then I'm
problem.
actually going to go through and take that, the list of carryover items, right? And the stuff that everyone's been paying attention to, excuse me, in the clerk's office, and then just try and describe each one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you and I did the other day. And that'll be like, that'll be our starting point, I guess.
Sounds good.
Hey, Josh.
Hello, good evening. How are we doing?
Doing
And
good.
Jacqueline, do you want to let in maybe Melissa Brown to try the screen share?
Yeah.
I think that's right. Right?
Yes, that's the person who will be
That's
sharing
right,
their
yeah.
screen. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
So if you want, feel free, you can test out sharing your screen really quick.
Okay.
be careful, because if you don't get it right, we ridicule you.
Relentlessly. Oh,
Okay.
well, there it goes.
There
Guess
we
we
go.
can't
Oh,
ridicule.
man.
All right.
We
Okay.
missed our
So it works.
opportunity.
Yeah, that looks
I've been
great.
doing this a lot. So, okay. Thank you.
And I guess, Josh, while we're waiting for people to come in, I was kind of surprised, with the rules committee work. I was kind of surprised that the rules are like 3 times longer than, or there's three times as much content for the rules as there is our entire city charter. I guess in the back of my mind, that makes sense, but I
Yeah.
didn't think about it that way, right?
Yeah, when you think about it, it's like, the Constitution's pretty short, but the
Yes,
laws of the land are pretty long.
pretty long. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And governing 24, hooligans like us, that takes a lot of effort. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of rules. Yes.
Well, it doesn't have to be 24 hooligans, but blame the people for that one.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Yep,
Yeah.
fair enough. Let's look at it this way. There are 24 hooligans.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Several of whom are with us tonight.
Let's see, what do we got? We're up to 3 of us.
4, 5.
Committee members I'm talking.
Committee, there's 3. Yeah, you're right.
Not that I don't love all of you, Councilor Lucas.
Nope.
You know I do.
Love my quality time with Councilor Lucas.
When it comes to quorum,
right? Not so much. Oh, I think we're setting a record for attendance in the month of August.
See, this is why I don't feel like we need to break for the summer. This is why.
Yep.
But that's just me. I like to work. I like to get stuff done. Only we could get the committee members here.
Yeah, we're still a couple shy there. Oh, Julia's here, so we're over Bill, so we got 5. Okay.
Okay. With that, why don't we call this meeting to order? This is the Programs and Services Committee. It is Wednesday, August 14th. Let me start by introducing counselors who are here. I'm Josh Krinsman, Counselor at Large from Ward 4, Chair of the Programs and Services Committee. From Ward 5, Counselor Bill Humphrey is the Vice Chair of the committee. Welcome, Counselor Humphrey. From Ward 1, Counselor John Oliver. From Ward 3, Counselor Julia Maliki, excuse me. From Ward 6, Counselor Alan Lobovitz. And I think I saw from Ward 8, Counselor Stephen Farrell. There you are, Counselor. Looks like we are also joined at the moment by Counselor Tariq Lucas.
Chair, are you recording this?
Am I?
Recording in progress.
Yes.
Do you guys want me to start again? I introduced all the counselors and said this is Programs and Services Committee. Counselor Tariq Lucas, who pointed out the lack of a recording up until 17 seconds ago. Counselor Raina Getz. I see we're being joined by Counselor Lyle Baker, who is also a member of the committee. I see our tree warden and deputy commissioner, Mark Welch, is here from the city. Have I missed anyone?
Counselor Kritzman, I can't believe
I
you missed.
apologize, Counselor Leary. I apologize.
I was one of the early ones on.
And my fault. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. I have bad vision, hence the reading glasses.
And I'm here too.
Counselor Baker, I did introduce you as you were joining, but thank you for joining us, sir. Okay, our first item is item 28-24. This is a discussion and possible amendments to Chapter 21, Article 3, trees, and jointly with item 51-24, proposed amendments to Section 2185, tree replacement concerning invasive species, and item 52-24, proposed amendment to Section 2181 and Section 2185, tree replacement regarding single and two-family residential. Tonight's agenda, we're going to hear from some residents. We're going to get a couple of presentations. The background is that I think they were upset that we had a presentation from individuals who had concerns with the tree ordinance, and I think wanted sort of an opportunity to either rebut that or at least present some favorable impressions of the tree ordinance as it stands, or more supportive of the tree ordinance. I shouldn't say supportive, because I know there are also changes sought. And if that's an unfair characterization, I don't know if it's Dr. Brown is starting, or whoever, feel free to correct me. But so we're going to hear from Dr. Brown for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to hear from Mothers Out Front. I think it's Cindy Calloway for 3 minutes, and then we'll open it up for other public comment as we did last time. And anyone who wishes to make a comment will have up to 3 minutes to make comments. I don't anticipate any actions by the committee tonight, but we are just here to gather additional information. So with that, Dr. Brown.
Thank you. Thank you very
I
much.
apologize. I'm
Good.
sorry, Dr. Brown. I should have also mentioned that we are being audio and video recorded, especially after Councilor Lucas's reminder to record, but we are being audio and video recorded. Thank you. I apologize for interrupting Dr. Brown. Go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you very much. I am going to share my screen and I have a slide presentation.
Yep, we're seeing it.
So as Councilor Krinsman said, I'm Melissa Brown. I am a co-founder and a steering committee member of Protect Newton Trees. And we at Protect Newton Trees, along with Mothers Out Front, requested to speak today to show committee members that there is public support for the new tree ordinance. There are many specific reasons that we need the 2023 tree preservation ordinance. They fall generally into three categories: tree loss, public health, and climate and environmental benefits. I want to start by quoting the city's 2018 Climate Vulnerability Assessment and Adaptation and Resilience Plan. They said, quote, "One key concern in Newton is the continued loss of trees to development and the loss of street trees to disease and gas leaks," unquote. According to that vulnerability report, Newton had a tree canopy cover of 48% in 2017. But we are losing canopy faster than we are gaining it, and we still have a ways to go. For example, State Senator Cindy Cream's municipal reforestation bill proposed that there should be a target of 60% tree canopy all across Massachusetts in every town and city. The vulnerability report discusses climate-related illnesses and argues that to keep Newton residents healthy, we need more trees. The vulnerability report also recommends preserving Newton's existing green infrastructure, by which they mean trees, waterways, and wetlands, as part of the city's climate action goals. And the reason for this is that trees cool and clean the air, remove carbon from the atmosphere, reduce flooding, provide wildlife habitat, and more. There is broad support for the new tree ordinance. Certainly the Parks and Rec Department it supports it. The Law Department has said that it feels comfortable with the ordinance as legally defensible. A number of climate groups support it: Protect Newton Trees, Mothers Out Front, the Urban Tree Commission, Green Newton. There are letters of support from all these groups on the Protect Newton Trees website. Additionally, we have gathered 478 Newton residents who signed our petition supporting even more protection for trees. I know there were a few more additional signatures today. That support continues to grow. The basic goals of the tree ordinance for trees that are 6 inches and larger at about 4.5 feet across the trunk, about 4.5 feet off across the above the soil, is to collect data about trees on private land. The city has data on street trees, which show that about half of street trees have been lost since the 1970s, but the city does not have data on individual trees on residential or other private properties. Looking at data overall, at the overall tree canopy from satellite images, the city estimates that about 55% of all trees in Newton are actually on residential properties. So there is the need to collect data on the numbers, size, and species of trees existing on these properties, as well as tree loss. I'm going to talk a little bit more in the next few minutes about the reduction of impacts of the climate emergency on Newton residents and the need to protect neighbors and the whole community. One of the first most immediate things about looking at impacts, these figures, both from the vulnerability report, show that where the tree canopy is thin or non-existent, that's the white patches on this left-hand image, there are heat islands on the right, the red patches on the right-hand image. We also can tell that there is an equity issue to tree coverage in Newton. Nonantum, West Newton, Newton Center, Upper Falls, all have significantly less tree coverage and more heat islands. And there can be an up to 74-degree difference in the land when there is tree coverage or not. This data comes from July 13th, 2016, and the red zones get up to 140, and the blue zones where there's more tree coverage are 66 degrees. Heat is a business issue. 40% of all Newton businesses are located in hot zones. So the science that shows that only as few as 3 trees can lower energy costs from $100 to $250 annually impacts businesses as well as residences. Oh, excuse me. Flooding is also a major issue in Newton. To quote from the vulnerability report, future development that increases impervious surfaces or further alters natural drainage will exacerbate flooding problems. And flooding is getting worse, both from climate change, but also because we have lost trees. The vulnerability report estimated that in 2017 in Newton, trees stopped 90 million gallons of stormwater for the year, a value of over $800,000 to the city. And it recommended that the use of green infrastructure and low impact techniques, by which they mean preserving existing mature trees, will further reduce stormwater runoff and cooling costs. As an example of protection and how it affects neighbors, I want to use this one specific tree. So if you look at the image, there's one sweet gum tree that has a diameter of 13 inches. It's on the property of the greenhouse on the left, but its benefits affect both the greenhouse and the gray house. So the energy saved for the greenhouse is estimated at 107 kilowatt hours per year. For the greenhouse on the left, for the gray house on the right, the estimate is 66 kilowatt hours. So there are benefits to both properties. In addition, both properties are affected by avoiding almost 1,100 gallons of stormwater every year, keeping water out of basements, and of course, the benefit of 187 pounds of carbon dioxide removal from the air. If this one tree were to be cut down, and it's not the largest tree even in the picture, it would negatively impact both properties. The new tree ordinance addresses the #1 tree-related complaint in Newton, which is damage by construction to neighbors' trees. That complaint, that priority is the reason that tree removal permits require an arborist to draw up a tree protection plan using industry standard tree save areas. These are examples of the kind of damage that has been done to neighbors' trees in Newton. These are from 2022 under the old ordinance. And you should be aware that root damage from either cutting or from smothering the roots can lead the tree to become dangerously unstable and likely to fall over. Unfortunately, these issues are still ongoing. This example is from just a few weeks ago in July. In the Norway maple here on the right is on the property of this house, but was affected by work done on the opposite property. This is a root that was cut from this tree when this wall was placed within 3 feet of the trunk of the tree. The damage in this case, it was allowed because the construction was being done under the old tree permit system, the old ordinance. Oh, there we go. So I want to urge the committee that when the time comes to evaluate the new ordinance, that you consider impacts on not only the applicant, but also all of the surrounding neighbors, that you consider the community impacts in terms of heat islands and flooding, pollution and air quality and equity issues. And I also suggest, in agreement with Mr. Welsh and others who spoke at the April meeting, that we need more time before evaluating. The pre-existing permits still being used definitely muddy the evaluation process. We recommend waiting until March 1st of 2025. And Protect Newton Tree members support having stronger tree protections than are in this current ordinance. So I want to leave you with a sentiment that Senator Ed Markey said on Earth Day of this year. Climate action can't be an either or. We need new and old trees, solar panels and forests, dense housing, and accessible green space. And that's something that this ordinance attempts to move us toward. And I hope in the future we can have stronger protections taking us even further. Thank you, and I would be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. That was perfectly timed. Well done. I appreciate it. I appreciate the effort that went into that presentation. I don't see any hands at the moment, so let me move along to Ms. Calloway. I want to give you your 3 minutes as well, and then we'll move into public comments. Anyone who wishes to make a comment.
Great.
So, Ms.
Thank
Calloway?
you very much. My name is Cindy Calloway. I live at 83 Grove Hill Avenue in Newton, and I've been a homeowner in Newton for over 30 years. I am part of the leadership team of Mothers Out Front Newton, and I'm speaking in support of tree protections, which benefit our planet, our city, our families, and future generations. Our Mothers Out Front team is raising awareness about the critical importance of trees in combating the climate crisis. A number of counselors are new members of this Programs and Services Committee and were not involved in the tree ordinance discussion. I know the ordinance was voted and passed and is actually a much weaker tree ordinance than we had hoped to see. And I agree with Melissa that, we need to give it a full year to see how it's working and then decide what further protections are warranted. I don't know if you saw the article. It was in the Newton Beacon on Tuesday. It was a great article. It discussed heat islands caused by the lack of trees in parts of Newton and the temperature differences in parts of Newton, which Melissa also alluded to. In the article, they mentioned, plus 10 degrees or more in areas with fewer trees. And Mark Welch, you were quoted in there. I know you're doing a great job as our tree warden, and you're focusing on planting more public trees because we've lost a large number of our trees over the year. And while planting public trees is critical, we need to stop tree loss and add to our tree canopy. It's also important, and besides planting new trees, to save our existing trees, which are also included on private properties. These mature trees actually have a much bigger and immediate impact on climate change. The values of trees cannot be underestimated. Trees should be considered a key part of our city infrastructure, every bit as important as our drinking water supply, sewage, and transportation. As Melissa pointed out in her presentation, trees make a big difference in mitigating climate change. Trees sequester and store carbon dioxide, which is a major greenhouse gas. They release oxygen and clean our air. They intercept and absorb rain, reducing stormwater runoff, especially critical with the severe storms we are experiencing due to the climate crisis. They clean our water and remove pollutants. They act as a noise barrier. They provide a rich habitat for birds and other wildlife, contributing immensely to biodiversity. They cool the air and ground around them, and they help keep cooler temperatures. They reduce energy demand by creating shade for buildings. And trees actually make people happy. In the Newton Beacon article, BU professor Richard Primark said, quote, "Trees make a more enjoyable environment, and there are many studies that show that when people live in environments with a lot of trees and other plantings, they actually feel happier and more relaxed and suffer from less tree stress and anxiety." These are all key reasons that we need to really focus on our trees and the environmental impacts. And they should be part of every discussion the city and councilors consider when making decisions about all parts of Newton's infrastructure. Building roads, waterways, we need to encourage our residents and developers to keep existing trees and plant more trees to combat climate change for all of us and for our children's future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I want to quickly mention that we've been joined by Councilor David Nickley, who's a member of the committee, as well as Councilor Maria Greenberg, I think I said, and they joined a while ago, so I apologize for taking so long to acknowledge them. Do any councilors or members of the committee have any questions for either of the two people who have spoken, or should I go right to public comment? Okay, seeing no comments, I see one hand, and let me say, for those of you who are either less familiar with Zoom or haven't done this before, there's usually a raise hand function at the bottom of your screen, or sometimes, depending on your version of Zoom, it's under reactions. So please electronically raise a hand. I'll try to call folks in order. If you are having trouble with that, turn your camera on and wave your hands, and I'll try and get you that way. Okay. Judith Barashek. Just want to make sure you can unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yep.
Judy Borashek, I live at 32 Indian Ridge Road in Newton. I have a story about flooding as an abutting neighbor. And I very much support the tree ordinance because of what happened to the house I've lived in for 46 years. The house next on my north side was taken down in October or November of 2023 with a permit, a tree permit issued under the old ordinance. You probably remember that in December we had a huge amount of rain. And at that time, my cellar on the north side, on the abutting side where the house was taken down, flooded from the north side. The water came in from the north side. Now, when the house was taken down, a linden tree with a 40-inch diameter was also taken down. So my conclusion is that the flooding that came in, which has never flooded, I've never had flooding in the cellar, and certainly not anything from the north side. So I'm particularly concerned because we missed that linden, and we were very unfortunate to have the flooding in late December. I thank you for your work and would especially appreciate the protections for abutting neighbors, which we did not receive any information because, of course, the people that took the house down got their permits under the old ordinance. So I hope you'll continue for the ordinance at least for another year and hopefully expand it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
Okay.
Thank you for the comments. Next, I have Laura Petrillo.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Laura Petrillo, 119 Oxford Road in Newton, and a member of both Protect Newton Trees and Mothers Out Front. I'm a strong supporter of the tree ordinance and really appreciate the work that this committee did over time to arrive at an ordinance that would increase tree protection, increase the amount of data collection that we have about trees. I continue to feel, though, that we need to do more, and it was sad and hard to hear the kind of immediate attacks on the ordinance from parties who are clearly affected by it, but weren't present for all of the deliberations that your committee so thoughtfully did to try and arrive at an ordinance that kind of took into consideration all of the different things. But I couldn't agree more with Melissa and Cindy, just how important trees are as our shared green infrastructure. Trees are just a huge part of my life now. I talk and think about trees all the time. My kids joke about it, like mom's off to do a tree meeting. So it feels like it's been part of my life forever, but I actually can only date it. It's been 2 years. I know because I first noticed trees. I mean, I've loved trees my whole life, and I didn't even realize how much I love trees until I was actually walking with my infant son on my chest, and I heard a tree being cut down, and it really was like painful. Like I remember feeling it viscerally, the tree coming down, and then the tree next door to me came down, which the counselors know about because I emailed about that, and Mark knows about that because I called him. But that was like my activating moment of just really, like, it's like when you're shopping for cars and you suddenly notice all the cars on the street. I just suddenly noticed all the trees in our neighborhood and how incredibly beautiful Newton is with its trees, and also simultaneously how under attack the trees are just at all times. We are losing so many trees, and it's so much easier for developers to just clear cut properties, and we see it all the time. And it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch when you're invested in the future of your city, and you know, care about and are anxious about the planet and climate change. And so I just urge everyone to continue to think about ways that we can protect our mature trees in Newton, because they're an incredible resource. And I just appreciate the work of this committee and hope that we can continue to protect trees. Thanks. I was under.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mary Ann Payne. You need to unmute yourself, please. Well, I should say you don't need to, but it's far more effective if you do.
Okay. Mary Ann Payne, I live at 12 Capias Path in Oak Hill Park, and I have spoken to the committee before, and I do appreciate your work, but I must say that in my neighborhood, which is in danger of becoming a heat island due to the tremendous knockdown of houses, tremendous development, I see mature trees being cut down every day. And I noticed over the last year that every one of these new houses has to have a sump pump. And you hear these sump pumps going, not just right after the rain. You'll hear the sump pumps going for a full week after the rain. You can hear them when you walk down the street. So there's a tremendous lost opportunity to benefit from mature trees soaking up rainwater. And I know that a lot of these developers are planting mostly arborvitaes, which, you know, we're not going to mitigate carbon and everything like a deciduous tree does. And I just hope that the committee will actually strengthen the ordinance, because it actually takes 30 to 50 years for these young trees to be equal to the environmental benefit that the mature trees have when they're cut down. And I was at the last meeting when the developer and his contractor were complaining. And I just feel that, yeah, change is hard and people don't want to do that. And I'm sure builders didn't want to get permits when permits were first required, just for building permits. So I really think that it's an important environmental step for the city to stand behind. And that if people are complaining bitterly, you have to understand that change is hard and it takes time. But hopefully, before everything is cut down, this ordinance will help. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't get your address. Did you say your address?
12 Capias Path, KA.
Great, thank you. I am looking to see if there are other hands. Okay, I see David Roll. David Roll, if you have comments, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, my name is David Roll. I live at 21 McGew Place. Sorry, I'm just trying to turn my camera on here too. I just wanted to lend my support to the ordinance and thank you for the, for putting this in place and give a quick example of the kind of benefit it has. I mean, I've not been an activist or involved in any of these organizations, but I was just having a conversation with my neighbor about taking down a diseased tree that was between our properties, on his property, and he agreed to take it down. But he said, well, I think I'll just get rid of a couple of these other trees along here when we do it. The fact that there was a tree ordinance, I could say, well, you need to get a permit to take down a tree that's 6 inches or more, and could show him the ordinance and the numbers associated with it. This would cost a couple of $1,000s to replace a tree this size. So, and it ended up with him deciding to keep this 30-year-old pin oak tree, which is not huge, but it's going to be the nicest tree in front of our house. So I just want to endorse the ordinance and the way that it kind of changes the conversation and makes it so that that people can really see the value of trees, and allows us to for me as a neighbor where the tree was going to have a much bigger impact on me and what I see out my front door than it was on him, at least to have a voice and a say in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. I'm not seeing other hands, so let me just give it a minute here, see if there is anyone else who wants to speak. And you can raise your hand, and if you're unable to electronically raise your hand, again, turn on your camera, wave your arms, hold up a sign that says, I'm trying to speak. Sign language, maybe. I wouldn't understand it, but I'd recognize that something was happening. Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, you're muted, sir. Oh, you know that though. Okay.
There we go. Thank
Yep.
you. I appreciate the testimony. I just want to, several people may not have been part of the conversation we had earlier, but there is also a state statute that many people don't know about, which is Chapter 242, Section 7, basically provides that there is a remedy of treble damages for willful destruction of trees and shrubs on someone else's property. So there is a complementary law in the state laws, which has been around for literally years and years. So just so that people are aware of that.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment. Also appreciate that it gave more time for anyone else looking to comment to raise their hand, and I'm not seeing any. So let me just see if there are any members of the committee who want to do anything other than hold these items. Otherwise, I'm happy to entertain a motion to hold all three items. Councilor Labovitz?
I did have a question that no one addressed. Perhaps Mr. Welch could do that, which is about Norway maples, which are considered invasive. As far as I understand, the tree ordinance applies to Norway maples, but there is talk that because it's invasive, we should exclude Norway maples.
Yeah, I'll turn that over to Deputy Commissioner Welch, but I will say that during our deliberations, I think at one or two points, we contemplated sort of an exemption for invasive species. I don't think we ever landed on any acceptable language, and my recollection is that we didn't carve out any exemption for removal of invasive species that would be sort of exempt from the replacement requirements or the requirements of the ordinance. But if that's incorrect, Mr. Welch, please proceed.
Well, thank you, Councilor. I think you have it spot on. I think that based on our discussions previously, and our stance, or my stance, is that it requires a thoughtful discussion. I think it's important to remember that the term invasive could mean different things, and just because a tree is invasive doesn't mean it doesn't have some positive value. So Norway maple, and for instance, produces the same or better environmental value than some native trees when we're talking about the things that we've talked about today: stormwater retention, pollution, things like that. So I think it requires a thoughtful discussion. Currently in the ordinance, Norway maples require replacement when the reason the tree is being removed is for the sake of removing trees and doing construction. If a property owner is looking to remove a tree, a Norway maple tree, and it's for the betterment of the trees on their lot or the betterment of their lot for improvement of the environment, replacement isn't required. That's a current provision within the ordinance. And of course, for non-construction projects on 1 and 2 family lots, which is the majority in the city, there isn't a replacement requirement on the removal of any tree. Therefore, a Norway maple or any other invasive tree for that matter could be removed without replacement. But I think in the end, it requires, if that's a direction that the committee feels we go in, I think it requires some guardrails, some parameters, and some further discussion.
I wasn't suggesting that the committee go in that direction. I just wanted a clarification. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, you all set, Councilor Labovitz?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Councilor Leary?
Thank you very much, Councilor Krinsman. Speaking on that same topic that came up, I was one of the docketers of the next docket item regarding invasive trees. And first of all, I want to say that this has been an excellent discussion, and I wholeheartedly agree with everyone that's spoken so far about the value of trees and the real value of this tree ordinance. And I would also look for ways to improve it. The reason why I wanted a little more discussion about the trees that are considered non-native or invasive. And it looks like maybe we should wait longer, as I've heard tonight, that maybe we need a full year. But the reason I brought it up was because the president and founder of Cold Spring Park I think we all know, and he brought this up because he was concerned about, he had a plan for wanting to replant on non-native trees. And as many people might know, they're doing red maple plantings in Cold Spring Park in the sort of the swampy areas and things like that. There is some tree management going on. So what I would ask the committee is that maybe we should consider a plan for replanting native trees under some circumstances, particularly in our parks and areas where we want to encourage specific kind of, say, wildlife diversity. And maybe that discussion should be at a later time. And then one other thing I wanted to ask our commissioner was, I recently had a homeowner concerned about limbs falling on her property from a mature, healthy pine tree. It's not a two-family house, it's a condo association. So she understands that tree cannot be removed per the ordinance, but I was wondering if there's ways that an arborist could come in and remove any dangerous limbs that might be overhanging the property, and how that would work.
It's just sure. So there is no restriction within the tree ordinance for the pruning of a tree as long as it's done correctly, and there's no requirement for a permit for the pruning of a tree. So
You just need a certified arborist to do it. Is that correct?
No, the city ordinance does not regulate in any way the pruning of private trees and who does it.
Okay.
They just need to, if we were to find someone were to so significantly and poorly prune a tree, then we might need to consider that a removal. But that is the extent at which we would be involved from a tree ordinance perspective at this time.
I was going to ask about that because some people could really over prune trees. As a matter of fact, usually Eversource does that when they are coming through to prune trees as they are to make room for the electric lines. We've seen some very aggressive pruning by that utility in that way. Is there any way the city can get involved in that in terms of how public trees are pruned by our utilities?
Yeah, we are involved. We issue them a permit every year by state law. Whenever they need to do pruning, they have very specific parameters they need to follow. And for the most part, they are in compliance on city trees with what we require. That's a long, the conversation on utilities and trees could go on for a long time. And the city is not 100% unculpable here. We made the poor choice of planting the wrong trees under the wires. So, we have to work with them. And they're also regulated by the state. So we work with them. And our partnership has been good the last several years. We had some problems years ago, and our utility didn't have a good vegetation management plan. That's why the pruning looked so drastic.
Right.
But because now they are back on a good cycle, the amount that they remove from trees is within a safe threshold for the percentage of the canopy.
Okay, thank you very much. My questions have been answered, and you've heard my comments. And I just want to say that I really appreciate the hard work of the committee getting this tree ordinance through, which seems to be working quite well. I look forward to future discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. Councilor Humphrey, followed by Malky. Councilor Humphrey.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on Councilor Lobovitz's questions, just to give some perspective again on the discussions we had last year in committee. So first of all, I'll echo the earlier remarks from Mr. Welsh about this, that, there are some provisions in there to address the issues around invasives if that's actually what's happening and that it's not just a construction, pretext or something like that. But I think the discussion that we had in committee, which I would personally recommend that if we're going to go down this route of doing something in this vein, that it might be better to do a working group specifically on this topic, because what came up in the discussion is exactly as was alluded to earlier. It's very difficult to define, and people throw around terms sometimes interchangeably. What is a non-native invasive species? And some things are non-native, but they're not invasive. You can plant one and it's just one and it doesn't grow everywhere. And then there's ones that are non-native and invasive, and then they grow everywhere. And it might make sense to have a specific ordinance to deal with the management of that. And, sometimes people will write in and say, I saw a, little sapling that just sprouted up from one of these invasives. Can I take it out? And I think that's a different question than some of the questions that this ordinance overall is looking at. And then there's the question about, what are we replacing with? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the policy is that you're not supposed to be doing replacement trees with non-native species at this point, but I can't remember if that's correct. And then I think there is also the growing concern that because of climatic shifts, that some species are going to be migrating out of their traditional range. And that is such a complicated thing to deal with and hard to predict that, again, I think we were very reluctant last term to try to, shoehorn that into 1 or 2 meetings and make a decision without being, properly informed. And so I think having a group that is, set up temporarily, at least, to look through the science and the research on that and come up with something that makes sense, I think would be the way to go. But to the point of this specific ordinance, I think our forester is making a pretty reasonable point here, which is that if we're talking about a mature, healthy, very large tree that has been here a while, but happens to be non-native invasive, cutting it down solely because it's non-native invasive, that's we have to think carefully about if that's what we want to be incentivizing. And so I think coming up with a balanced policy that is specifically to deal with this issue of non-native invasives, I think is important. And it's worth mentioning that there are a lot of other plant species that are invasives that are not trees, and it would be nice to deal with some of those as well. And maybe, help people get some weed wrenches going in their yards to get some of those out. So anyway, I hope that's helpful context for some of the newer committee members who weren't here last year for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Maliki.
Absolutely. I'll sort of go backwards here. I'm a lot more worried about Japanese knotweed, garlic mustard, bittersweet, and black swallowwort than I am about the huge nori maple in my back corner, because all those little seedlings that drop, they just get mowed. Anyone worried about, the nori maple saplings, whatever, anything under 6 inches is not even covered by this. So, pull away on anything that small that's invasive and get rid of it. Let's see, what were the other points I wanted to make? It's already any concern about replanting with invasive species is kind of redundant, because we've already got invasive species. There's a whole state list of invasive trees, invasive plants. They are already illegal to sell or import to Massachusetts, and they're not allowed. They've never been allowed as replacement plantings in under our tree ordinance for the last 20 years. One of the residents commented about the how developers tend to just plant arborvitae. So one thing we did spell out more clearly in the revision to the ordinance is that trees planted in hedge formation no longer count as replacement trees. So that's basically what developers are doing with their arborvitaes. They're planting them, 5-6 feet apart as a substitute for a fence or something like that. They're still free to do that, but they're not going to be able to count those as replacement inches. The resident from Judy Borashek from Indian Ridge Road. Is she still on? I don't know. That's a really unfortunate situation.
She's still on. Her camera's off, but she's still on.
Oh, okay. I don't know where on the lot this tree was located, but even if it were happening under the improved strengthened ordinance now, the developer would still be free to cut down the tree. If it were on the, closer to the property line, they might be more inclined to try to preserve it than they were before, because a very large tree would have a higher mitigation payment required. But if they were bound and determined to take that tree down, they could still take it down. So your property would still suffer from the loss of that tree's absorption of stormwater. What is supposed to mitigate that problem is the stormwater and the water infiltration systems that are required for new developments, but it's a mathematical formula. It has to contain the amount of stormwater that would fall up to 2 inches on the impervious area of the property. And it's not clear to me that everything's working as it should. And loss of a tree is still going to, I think, be impacting neighbors. I think just in the last couple of weeks, I've been hearing situations of how the tree ordinance is not working or working partially, especially with regards to the notification aspect and the protection of abutter trees aspect. And I think we're going to be learning a lot over the next few months of things that need to be improved if we want to really make the protection of neighbors' trees a reality. The one that comes to mind immediately is it's here in West Newton, and it's a situation. It's like a 41-inch elm tree near the property line, right on the property line, and the arborist, very good arborist, good tree company, reputable tree company, but they seem to be a little unclear on the concept that they're supposed to be having a tree protection plan to not damage that tree. And instead they're saying, we'll try to protect the tree, but the construction is probably going to damage it and it could die in, 3 to 5 years. And then it's basically your problem. And it almost feels like a threat that if you don't let this developer take down your tree, you're going to have to deal with it, instead of what the goal of this ordinance was, to actually protect the trees. And that's one of the things I want to keep an eye on. So there's a lot that we can be looking at. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Oliver.
Great. Thank you, Chair. I think that I'm more inclined to kind of go with your hint/suggestion of a few minutes ago. At this time, I'm happy to move hold on these items. I think that given everything we've heard, we need a little bit more of a track record here to act in any other way. But it does seem that hold would be the right way to roll here.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Oliver. Councilor Oliver has moved hold on all 3 items, I assume.
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on that motion from members of the committee or anyone? Councilor Mickley?
Yeah, thank you, Chair President. Completely agree with Councilor Oliver. Feel like we need more of a track record. The one question I just have for Mark Welch is, a year from now, or April, May 2025, are we going to have sort of a database of feedback of both what's been working and complaints and issues with the ordinance that we can look to, so we can provide a comprehensive evaluation in 2025?
So yeah, we will have the data that we collect specific to number of permits, trees removed. We will have that. We'll have data where if there's been infractions or penalties or fines or warnings issued, we'll have that. I suppose that some of the more anecdotal information, or the information that some of you all might receive that may or may not come to me, I won't have that information, but anything that we receive, we'll be able to have information on and track.
Okay, great. So I guess I would just encourage all of us, counselors and otherwise, that get feedback to collect and organize feedback that we hear over the years so that we can use that anecdotal evidence as well. But yeah, I completely agree with the sentiment shared by Councilor Oliver.
Thank you. So what we have, I believe, is a motion to hold 5224, 5124, and 2824. I got those right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We'll hold the 3 items by the unanimous vote. I want to thank those of you who were both here to hear these presentations and hear about those items, and also those of you who did take the time to make the presentations and speak to us about the ordinance. I do think it's important that we track this and hear about its implementation and hear about any problems that there are with it. Again, whether it's concerns about how it's implemented or concerns about how it's not implemented. So I think that's all going to be valuable information. So I want to thank everyone. The next item for the committee is item 244-24. This is Her Honor the Mayor requesting discussion and amendments to the Human Rights Commission ordinance. I believe Commissioner of Health and Human Services Lau is here to tip off this other yard mission. Let me kick it over to you and you can tell us exactly what's going on here.
All right, thank you so much, Councilor Princeman. Good evening, councilors. This is a request to revise the Health and Human Services ordinance that relates to the Human Rights Commission. Really, this is about clarifying the commission's investigatory power and authority. The way the ordinance is currently written, it allows the commission to investigate, subpoena witnesses, and mediate discrimination complaints. And unfortunately, the commission does not have any legal jurisdiction or authority to enforce or remediate from any investigation that happens. There are other legal forums where people who feel like they've experienced discrimination can have their cases heard. For example, the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination is one of those. And those organizations are actually able to provide legal relief, actually investigate, follow up on those types of complaints. And so having this ability in the commission's hands can be confusing to people who file complaints, and it can lead to delays in action. And we don't feel like it's unnecessary and it's actually not allowed legally. So that's the revisions that we're requesting that you look over.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I believe we've also been joined by Andrew Lee from the City Solicitor's Office and Hattie Kerwin-Derrick, Director of Community Engagement and Inclusion, who both are here on this item. Did either one of you want to say anything else about this?
Go ahead, Jonah.
No, you're stuck with Attorney Temple, not Attorney Lee, but I have
Jonah,
nothing else to add, but happy to answer questions, Chair.
And I don't
Okay.
either. Shani covered it all.
Well, that is terrific. Appreciate your brevity. Let me open it up. Excuse me. Let me open it up to members of the committee. Members of the committee, you have seen. I hope you have seen at least the proposal in the packet. Councilor Maliki.
I just wondered if anyone from the Human Rights Commission is here and wanted to comment.
We do have the current, sorry, Hattie, go ahead.
Yeah, please, no, go ahead.
You guys, Rabbi Stern, the current chair, is here. At least he was. Oh, there he is. Well, unmute yourself, Rabbi Stern.
Rabbi Stern, you're on mute, and let us know after you're on mute how you feel.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It is an ordinance that has no business remaining on the docket of the HRC, given that we have no legal standing to do it. And also given the fact that there are far more appropriate forums for the community than we have now. We certainly have the capacity to listen to people that have concerns and critiques, but ultimately anything that involves legal action is rightfully not in the hands of volunteers.
Thank you, Rabbi Stern. Councilor Maliki.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Humphrey.
I guess this is a question for Attorney Temple. Why did it take us this long to come to the realization that we weren't supposed to be doing this at this level?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little difficulty with my internet. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, so it's not that we don't have, the HRC does under state law have the legal authority to investigate complaints and to issue subpoenas. What they don't have the legal authority to do is anything after that. They have no enforcement authority or power, no remediation abilities. So the HRCs were, when they were created statewide many years ago, it was contemplated that they would do this, but it's kind of become an obsolete model at this point because there's really no end game. And now we have the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, which has the exclusive jurisdiction to actually enforce and adjudicate all discrimination claims in the state, where all victims or claimants have to go by law. So it's really just outdated at this point more than anything else.
Okay. I guess this makes sense to me, this change. And I think I have heard over the years people kind of, I won't say frustration, but more like confusion as to like, is this going to resolve the situation that I'm encountering? And I guess the answer is no, because it can't. So better to clarify that and have people go to the appropriate location, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think it's about setting the proper expectations for the public, because we don't want them to think that this is a place where they can come and truly get their rights protected, because it's not. Certainly the HRC could hear them out, but we want to make it clear that their role is not to investigate and enforce the law.
Okay. I guess my suggestion then on that front is that, it would probably be helpful for, the future role of the HRC is, that if someone has gone through the process with the state and that, dealing with their specific issue, but they want the city to be thinking big picture about how do we prevent this type of thing from happening in the future? How do we, raise community awareness that this is a problem? Maybe that's a good role for the HRC to, continue promoting sort of a general, understanding in our community across whatever lines may exist.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. From my understanding, that all what you just said falls squarely in what they do and what they should continue to do.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Humphrey. Councilor Oliver.
Great, thank you again, Chair. Just kind of building off of that, I think really my question is, or my comment, I guess, more to the point is similar to a situation that I've been kind of wrestling with here in Ward 1, different topic. But I would encourage the city of Newton to, and I'm sure that, this comment is not going to be controversial at all. We need to make sure that folks who are in need of this assistance, right, who need to speak to people who can help them, from a legal perspective, right, enforceable legal kind of interventions, we have to make sure that we are going that extra mile to make sure that they understand what we can do for them within the city and how to connect to, either through the city or directly to the state resources that are available to them. I find that to be a very difficult process. And I would like to think that I kind of know where I'm meant to be looking, whereas residents might not be. So I really do hope that we're not taking too far of a step back and that we're not kind of presenting what it is that we can do, how we can help folks who are looking for assistance, right? Get them connected to the right resources. If I'm saying that clearly. Other than that, I think this move makes total sense to not be misleading in that.
And I'll say in response to that, Councilor, and maybe some of the other staff members on the call want to chime in too, but that's exactly the model that we do. If you go to the Human Rights Commission website, there is a complaint form that we still have. So a complaint can still come in, and our role as staff is to review it and to refer it out to the proper state agency that has jurisdiction over it ultimately.
which is great. As long as that in part of that kind of process, there's the playback to the actual, complainant.
Yep,
I think that's the right term.
absolutely.
Great.
It does, can I just speak for a second? It does happen, and it happens both verbally and in writing, because we often know that people don't always hear that. So it is always also followed up in writing.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to move approval.
Okay. Counselor Oliver has moved approval. Commissioner Lau, I saw you unmute. Was there something you wanted to add, or did someone else cover it?
They mostly covered. I was just going to add to Councilor Humphrey's point. We do also collect information about the types of complaints that are coming in, and that helps to inform educational programming and other types of initiatives. So yes, both of those things that Councilor Oliver and Councilor Humphrey raised do already happen and will continue to happen.
Okay. Thank you. So again, Councilor Oliver has moved approval of 244-24. Councilor Humphrey.
Sorry, this is a really quick question just based on that prior remark. What is the process for expanding the list of things that we're collecting data on? Because I have definitely heard that critique raised in recent years, that there's certain things we're tracking, which is good, and certain things which we're not tracking, which is making it difficult to know the scale of the situation on those.
Commissioner Lau, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that.
Could you be a little bit more specific? I'm not sure.
In terms of like specific types of discrimination, because you were talking about tracking data for, knowing what kind of programming and educational interventions we need to make.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. I wasn't sure if you're talking about broader topics or. So right now we collect information on we categorize the complaints that come in, and we we keep track of the number of complaints, and some of that is the complaints that come to us through the complaint form that Attorney Temple referenced. And some of it is the complaints that come to us through the police department, because people can call the police department to, with a complaint about a hate incident, and then the police do investigate. And depending on whether it's a hate crime versus a hate incident, it's treated differently under their jurisdiction. But they do inform us of what's happening.
Okay, yeah, it's just as I said, some people have argued that there are certain types of incidents that are not being tracked because they're not a category that we've laid out in our, forms or whatever it may be. All right, thank you.
All right, Councilor Oliver has moved approval. Any other discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is that just me echoing? Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Approval. Thank you, Commissioner Lau. Thank you, everyone. Next item is item 288-24. This is her under the mayor requesting a discussion and amendments to Chapter 14, Senior Services. So I know Mignon Murray is here, but I actually believe we're going to be hearing from Joan Bell Isle, if I'm not mistaken, to kick off this discussion. Is that right, Ms. Isle? You're on mute.
I think that Mignon wants to sort of lead off with a discussion about the name change of the department itself. And then I can chime in on the changes as they are proposed for the Council on Aging, if that's okay.
Yeah, however you all want to do it. Ms. Murray?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So there are a couple of different aspects of this, as Joan pointed out. The one I'll speak to is, we are currently the Department of Senior Services. There has been a trend for many years now nationally through large aging associations to reframe aging. You may have noticed in a lot of areas and different organizations have changed from elder or senior citizen or to older adult or older people. It's been a movement that has been coming through. Even recently the state has been trying to change the Executive Office of Elder Affairs to the Executive Office of Aging and Independence. So part of the proposed change tonight is to change the department name from Senior Services to Older Adult Services. It's a small change, but just a change in trying to stay current with the language that is happening now, while we always look for better language to connect with people. Joan, do you want to talk next about what's in the for the Council on Aging?
Yeah, it's sort of apropos of rebranding and reinventing. I have been sort of observing and participating and now heading the Council on Aging for about 12 years. And I've always been somewhat confused as to what this advisory board thing was that was also a part of the Council on Aging, sort of kind of. I never saw that subgroup meeting independently of the council. I never saw anything that sort of indicated that there was any real role for them, seeing that the Council on Aging's role is an advisory one to the department. And the advisory board seemed to be also charged with the same mission. Over time, as terms have expired, the Council on Aging and the advisory board's membership has sort of winnowed down to the point where we can effectively combine the two and eliminate this sort of extra organizational thing that doesn't really seem to have a mission. And that is what the language with respect to the Council on Aging seeks to accomplish at this point. It seems that this is a really opportune time to do it, seeing that we have new leadership in the department. We're about to have a new senior center. Sort of the whole environment sort of says it is time and appropriate to reimagine what the Council on Aging, how it's constituted, how it's run, and what it accomplishes. And I would anticipate that we could be a whole lot more efficient with a 9-member council working on the issues as they arise in the city, affecting older adults, and as needed, organize sort of working groups or subcommittees that include other knowledgeable citizens for those particular issues, rather than having a continuing number of people who are part of an organization that kind of has a role and doesn't. So I'm open to any questions as to what we hope to accomplish with this, and take it from there.
Okay, thank you. And it does, I mean, at least from my perspective, it seems to make sense. This is essentially how the boards have been functioning, how the meetings have been taking place.
Yeah.
Anyway, so any counselors wish to weigh in, make a motion? I will mention that I believe about 15 years ago, the state of Iowa was looking to rename its Elderly Services Department and thought they were going to go with Department on Aging. But then after realizing that abbreviates to DOA, they thought maybe not the best idea. And so they ended up backtracking and looking for new. I noticed we don't have a similar concern here, so I'm pleased to see that. Councilor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'll refrain from the snarky comments about, gee, well, what's the benefit of reducing the size of a council to increase efficiency like that? Wow. But anyway, I guess I just lied because I am going to make my snarky comment. But I'm happy to move approval here as well.
I couldn't be more appreciative of your contributions this evening, Councilor Oliver. Councilor Oliver has moved approval. Discussion on that motion, Councilor Baker.
I think I can say I'm the senior member of the committee, so I just want to support his motion. I hope that's not inappropriate.
It is completely appropriate to support his motion. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that is unanimous as well. Thank you, Mignon. Thank you, Joan. Appreciate the time to be here and present this to us.
Thank you.
The next item, I'm good for us. We're moving along here. I know we had a long agenda item, so thank you all for hanging in there. Item 294-24. This is the CPC Community Preservation Committee's recommendation to appropriate $150,000 in CPA funding. If I'm not mistaken, is it Molly Hutchings?
Yes.
I know Commissioner Heath is here, and I know Commissioner Banks was going to be here. I didn't see if she joined, but Molly, have at it.
Hi, for those of you who haven't met me yet, my name is Molly Hutchings. I work in the planning department as the CPA program manager. And also here tonight is Buzz Dunker, who is our vice chair, who will be presenting. I'll show the PowerPoint.
Mr. Dunker, good to see you here. Please unmute and prepare to speak.
Go.
There we go.
Okay, this is, I don't know if any of you all know where Spears Park Community Garden is, but it's down on Washington Street, almost in Newton Corner. And the Parks and Rec Commission, which I'm part of as well, approved the plan to provide up to 30 raised garden beds, 2 of which will be accessible. And the plan we sent around to everybody, and we do have a couple representatives from Parks and Rec Department that can answer any technical questions. It's to put a fence around this area, provide amenities for the neighborhood and people who also use the gardens, as well as outside the fenced-in area to improve that for the neighborhood, enhance the pollinator habitat. They're going to have a composting area and a garden tool storage. They're going to have an irrigation system, and that's it for the basically what we're doing. You all seen the plan. I see that's in the packet. Next slide, Molly. So there were several concerns when they came before the Rec Commission about rodent control, parking, aesthetics. And we heard from everybody, and measures were taken in response to the petition. And we anticipate to be able to respond to future issues for this. As you know, the CPC just funds this. We don't design it. That was already approved. One of the things is we've been asked for $150,000, which is less than half of the project cost, which is one of our goals as a CPC, is to have people share in the funding, including the state contributing $75,000, ARPA funds $96,000, and for a total of just under $350,000. And that, as you can see on the slide, where the money is coming for the funding. And so our goal of the CPC is we'd like to have people share in it, and they're doing this. We had a lot of support on this project, and as I say, there were a few neighborhood concerns, and we hope we address those.
Before you take down the presentation, I think, is it Molly? Is it you? You have it up. Can you go back to the last slide? Because if I'm not mistaken, we need to amend this item. If folks will notice, those are not the amounts. The breakdown, it's obviously still $150,000, but the amounts, the breakdown is a little bit different than what was filed in the item originally. And I think that's because of a rollover, $113 or something like that, that's still in the Open Space Reserves Fund. So this modified amount that you see on the screen, when it comes to time to vote on this, if there's sufficient support, I would appreciate a motion, or I'm happy to make the motion that amends it to this breakdown, because that will fully capitalize on the Open Space Reserves Fund and the balance that is in there. And if I've misstated that, Molly or someone, please correct me.
No, that is correct. The numbers and the slides are the most up to date. We had $112 bonus in the new fiscal year. So.
Okay. I don't see any hands. Any questions? Councilor Greenberg, I know you were you were happy about this item moving forward.
Yes, very much. Thank you, Chair. It's been a long road. It's been a longer process than any of us had hoped for, but we're finally here. I wanted to take this opportunity to express my gratitude for all of those who supported this project. First of all, I want to thank the mayor for initiating this project with the allocation of the ARPA funds. Back in 2021, when the city was planning on how to use the 63 million we were about to receive, the mayor agreed with my recommendation that the residents on the north side of town were interested in constructing a community garden. I'd like to also thank Commissioner of Parks and Rec, Nicole Banks, and Open Space Director Luis Perez Demorozzi, and their team for all their hard work and efforts in making this a soon-to-be reality. I'm also grateful to Senator Cream and Rep. Lawn for fulfilling my request for the state funding of $75,000 for the garden. And finally, many thanks to the CPC for allocating the $150,000 needed to complete the garden. So this is a very exciting project. The neighbors are more than eager to get this going. We have a friends group that is organizing and maintaining the garden. So we're looking forward to getting it constructed soon. And I think Louise has some updates on when that will all start. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Greenberg. Louise, if you have comments, I'm happy to recognize you. I see Jen Frenette, I see you have a hand up. We're not doing public comment on this. So if there are thoughts or concerns or anything like that, it may be best to email them to the councilors. Okay. Mr. Demorizzi.
Thank you so much, councilors, and hard to follow Councilor Greenberg's notes here. Just wanted to give a few updates on the plan per some of the notes Buzz made earlier in the presentation. The project has addressed some of the concerns around rodents by purchasing commercial grade raised compost tumblers rather than having compost on the ground. We've also addressed some of the concerns about public versus community garden space by really trying our best to shrink the community garden space as well. But really more importantly, wanted to provide the council with some updates on the schedule. So we are working with our consultant, Weston and Sampson, to bid this project out, and this is expected to be bid out in September of this year. That way we can construct over the winter and into the spring and have a grand opening and gardeners planting seeds in the spring of 2025.
All right, thank you. Councilor Maliki, followed by Oliver. Councilor Maliki?
Thanks. Yeah, it's going to be nice to have a community garden on the north side. I was just curious because of the location. During the discussion on the Washington Street road diet, we heard a lot about the air pollution, the soot that's coming off the pike particularly. Is there going to, so I understand raised garden beds, I assume there'll be some, the soil will be purchased and brought in from somewhere, but will there be sort of periodic testing of the soil to ensure that it's like safe to grow vegetables in?
Thank you, Councilor, for that question. The raised beds will certainly have new soil in them, so that'll be fresh soil from a supplier. We currently don't have plans for testing the soils. We typically, as we do in Manhattan, although it is a different location and different setting, we typically don't test the soils for the gardeners, but certainly a good comment and something for us to consider as we continue moving this project along.
Yeah, I would, because I think it is a completely different location. Manhattan is so off in the woods.
Right,
right. And this is the exact opposite. So thank you.
Councilor Oliver?
Great, thank you, Chair. I was just gonna ask a question that I now found the answer to in the packet. In terms of kind of the maintenance of the property, it does look like we have included, mowing and seasonal kind of updates, cleaning up, if you will, watering. I assume there'll be several spigots on site. It's been a while since I've looked at the design.
Yes, correct, Councilor Oliver. There'll be spigots spread throughout the site so that gardeners don't have to drag really long hoses across the entire site.
Right. And then I assume also, pruning costs are more or less for trees and shrubs, not the actual plantings, which I assume will be, on the burden of the, the gardeners, if you will.
That's correct. The plants within the garden beds will be up to the gardeners. The plants that are part of the park will be the responsibility of the city.
Great. And I suppose in keeping with what I've been doing this evening, I'm happy to move approval here. I am sure that Councilor Greenberg wishes that she were on PNS tonight to do that very thing. But on behalf of Councilor Greenberg, who did all of the heavy lifting on this project, I'd like to thank her and see if we can get this approved tonight.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Councilor Oliver. So seeing no other hands, I am happy to motion to approve the item as amended, with the amendment being the breakdown again, as you see on the screen, the breakdown being $121,734.56 from open space reserves and $28,265.44 from others.
Thank you for that tweak. Appreciate it.
No worries. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving as amended, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Item is approved unanimously.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
We
Thank you all.
appreciate
Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
all.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work
Thank
that's put
you.
onto this. We now have a series of reappointments. Excuse me. I don't think any of the individuals are here. If I'm wrong about that, Jacqueline, set me straight. But item 304-24, this is the reappointment of John Sinnott to the Newton Commonwealth Foundation. I am happy to move approval, as I believe Mr. Sinnott is a resident of Ward 4. But let me, Councilor Baker. Before I saw your hand, I was going to say, I think Councilor Baker may want to weigh in here and tell us something about the Newton Commonwealth Foundation. So go ahead, sir.
Well, I'm going to support all the appointees, reappointments. I've talked with them individually about their service on the Newton Commonwealth Foundation, and it's been an important asset to the city, and they certainly deserve to continue. The only thing I just want to say is a piece of background. The foundation traditionally has someone from the Conservation Commission appointed as an ex officio representative. Dan Green was moved from that status into a formal status. I'm not sure there is someone directly representing the Conservation Commission now. And then also the bylaws for the foundation speak to, I think, almost half of the foundation, which is set at 12 members, really should be residents of the immediate area. Now there are none, to my knowledge, who are currently serving. So I think there's some opportunity available to the administration to respond to those gaps and get the foundation up to full strength. But in the meantime, I'm perfectly glad to support your motion.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I think those are all in support. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, I believe that is unanimous. Maybe folks just leave yourselves unmuted because this may go kind of quickly.
And I move approval on both of the items for Mr. Neville.
Sure. Councilor Humphrey for item 305-24, reappointment of John Neville to Newton Commonwealth Foundation. And item 306, reappointment of John Neville to the Parks and Recreation Commission, have both been moved for approval by Councilor Humphrey, right?
Yep.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. Thank you, Councilor
Also
Humphrey.
like to move approval for John Rice's reappointment to Parks and Rec.
Item 307-24, the reappointment of John Rice to the Parks and Rec Commission. Councilor Humphrey has moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous? We're on, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been unanimous tonight. We have one item left. Hold it together, okay? Item 321-24, the reappointment of Patrick Costello to the Farm Commission. I will move approval of the reappointment. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimity. Way to go, team. I love you all. I believe that concludes our summer. Thank you. I know we had several items on for tonight. Appreciate everyone hanging in there. Didn't end up taking that long. So I appreciate it. And onward, have a great rest of your summer. With that, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.